Meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body to order for July 21st. This is our regular meeting for the month of July on our summer schedule. As a reminder, our next regularly scheduled meeting will be the 18th of August. We're doing one meeting in July and one meeting in August, just as a reminder. Before we approve the agenda, I wanted to make notice that item number 4, which is the public hearing for the residences at Dominion Reserve, is by this action hereby postponed until a date certain, which is the 18th of August. That public hearing will be held at that date. And then I wanted to announce the addition of item 8F, which is the VDOT Grant Project Administration. Governing body had that email to them earlier today. So those items with the adjustments, those are the two that I have. We also have a number of items under closed meeting. Just for reference sake, the agenda had showed items 1 and 7. We're actually going in under items 1, 3, 4, 7, and 19 of the Freedom of Information Act. With those modifications, governing body's pleasure on approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. If we could rise for a moment of silence, please, and then Sue Haas, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is citizens' time. Do anyone signed up? I don't think so. Seeing none, we'll move on. We are postponing the public hearing on the residences at Dominion Reserve to the 18th of August, so we go past that. We have no presentations. Our consent agenda tonight consists of approval of minutes for June the 16th, Flory Small Business Development Center funding in the amount of $10,000, Social Services Advisory Board, the appointment of Linda Sanchez, September 1st, 2015 for a 2-year term. And Randy Knight, appointment to replace Denise Brown, Social Services Director, 5-year term effective 1 August. Proclamation of National Payroll Week. The Virginia Municipal League insurance quotes through HR. And Branscombe Paving in the amount of $181,442.22. Governing body's pleasure on approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to find out, have they completed paving of the work which was completed, sorry, not paving, striping of the work which was completed at the intersection of Manassas Drive and Euclid?
It started today. Is it finished? Did they finished it today?
They finished Manassas Drive. I'd have to check with the superintendent to see if they finished Euclid.
Okay.
I took a look when I came by, and Euclid seemed to be done. They may have some of the peripheral stuff, but the lines and the separators are all in place.
There's a couple of errors.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's some of the detail I think needs to be done, but the lining, the striping is at least done. I saw that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
I just wanted to point out something else. This payment is not for the striping. That was actually a different company, so that Branscombe didn't do the striping.
Yeah, I know. No, I just wanted to find out, like when it just reminded me that, it had not been done.
Yeah.
I know the paving work was done almost, I think, 2-3 weeks ago, but then the striping had not been done, so that's what I was asking.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to remind the governing body as we go through the agenda, you have before you a handout, and I wanted to make sure that the citizens who might be listening are aware National Night Out this year, the National Night Out 2015, is going to be held on Tuesday, August the 4th from 5 to 9 p.m. at Signal Hill Park. It is open to all citizens. It is a national effort to help the communities promote community unity and partnership in fighting crime together. It's always a good time, and lots of static displays and gear and equipment and things for folks to see, and it's a grand time for the youngsters to come out. So please remember National Night Out on Tuesday, August the 4th. Have no unfinished business. On to new business. The first is the bid for roof replacement. The recommendation is Home Chem Group in the amount of $184,504.47.
And Calvin double-checked the references today. He's available for questions if you guys have any.
Okay, just as an information, can Calvin or you, Kim, can you brief us on this particular? This is just something for the benefit of like the people who are watching it on TV.
Sure. We've continued to have problems with the roof here at City Hall leaking. The Patchouli Simmons did the engineering work for it. We bid out the project back in, and this has been an ongoing issue, back in December when the leaks started getting really bad. We put on a temporary patch that has seemed to last for the most part until now, but the entire roof does need to be replaced. The skylights will be taken away, which are causing a lot of the leaking. The downspouts are going to be changed, right? Do you want to explain a little bit more about what exactly is going to be done?
Yeah. Patchouli Simmons and Associates brought on Gauthier, Alvarado and Associates, and they had confirmed what we had been recommended by several roofing contractors. The first person I had out was Summit Roofing. They took a look at the job and they recommended that we not replace with standing seam metal because of the pitch of the roof and the difficulties associated with it. So when we first tasked Patchouli with it and Alvarado came on board, they agreed that Summit Roofing's recommendation of a build-up with an EPDM or another membrane covering was better for getting a 20-year warranty. They were afraid that no metal roofing manufacturer would acknowledge a warranty on a roof of this pitch, and they saw a lot of the existing problems as the hidden gutters, so to speak. The gutters are recessed back inside the walls of the building, and the downspouts actually come through the building itself. So by building up the roof with insulation between the seams on the standing seam metal roof and putting a membrane, you get a completely watertight membrane up to your AC units, your rooftop units, over your parapet walls, and we're doing away completely with the hidden gutters and the downspouts inside the building and putting gutters and downspouts on the outside of the walls of the building. So a lot of the issues that were just basically from the design of the original roof will disappear, and we'll have a 20-year minimum warranty on the roof itself, and the gutters will go away. They'll no longer be an issue. The downspouts will go away. They'll no longer be an issue. The last major leak we had was another downspout issue. So the design, I completely agree with the approach, seemed to be in line with a lot of professional contractors who had done similar type things before, and I think going the route we went with letting Alvarado look at it, we don't have to change the structure of the building. We don't have to do anything except fill in between the gaps and put a completely waterproof membrane over the whole system, and we do away with a lot of the problems. And the bids, we knew, we had been told by Alvarado that we could be looking at about $200,000. We were pleasantly surprised to get someone below that, but we did get bids all the way up to $305. So we've got a good price. I've checked the references provided by Home Chem. There was nothing bad to be said about them from any of the references. One of the references actually said they continually solicit them for bids on all their work. So I think we've got a good, reputable contractor who's bid the job. They provided all the appropriate documentation, and they will be held to the completion date in the contract. And I think we're looking at a good solution to be here for a long time with no more worries about the roof.
Okay, one last question, which is, when will this work be done?
As soon as we award the contract, they will be, unless we change the terms of the contract as they exist now, September 17th. Is the completion date they're going to be held to.
Okay.
Now, if there's any unforeseen circumstances, we may have to change that, but as of right now, September 17th, they'll have to be off the job and completed. So,
now, do we have to shift to the employees because it's going to be a lot of work going on?
We will have to do some parking arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to probably clear that back lot by the loading dock give them a staging area for ladders and lifts and such. And I'm certain that there will be times that they'll be doing work where they will want to limit pedestrian access where they're working so that nothing accidentally falls off and injures anyone. But there is no
tear down. Of
right,
the
there's no
existing.
true demolition associated with this, so there'll be no need to vacate any portion of the building. And there were some questions if they do wind up lifting some of the rooftop units, could we do without air conditioning for hours at a time while they lift the unit and replace it? But it's going to depend on the approach they take, and we're going to encourage them to never have a HVAC unit down between the hours of 8:30 and 5. So I think that's all manageable. It's just going to be construction scheduling working through me, and I think the worst case scenario is we lose a bit of our back gravel lot for permanent staging throughout the project, and we'll probably lose that lot by the loading bay for probably the duration of the project.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? All right, we have staff recommendation. What's governing body's pleasure?
I'll move approval as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item is Branscombe Paving, street paving operations in the amount of $593,796.80.
Go ahead.
Quick summary of the scope of work, please.
Okay, I did some aerial, little Google Earth, did some aerial depictions of the scope of work. They've divided this into the total of this lump sum is actually 4 separate jobs. The only aerial that doesn't depict an entire job is Euclid Avenue, and that's actually broken into 3 different jobs. We're working right now with their scheduling team to make sure that this Euclid Avenue work happens before the start of the school year. We don't have any positive confirmation that that's absolutely possible, but we're hoping. We've already delayed the Connor Drive work to get this in before school starts. So we're still waiting to hear back, and we will have an answer on that soon. We are going to do more work along Euclid in the actual intersections at Industry and Owens than just one lane, but for the most part, this paving along Euclid is going to be a repaving of this, I guess it would be the westbound, or the westernmost lane, the southbound lane of Euclid from Industry on, and then the entire width of Euclid all the way from Industry down to Euclid Court. So the entire Euclid Court will be done, the entire both directions of travel up to Industry, and then the southbound travel lane from Industry on up to Bloom's Quarry. That's the limits of that. That's broken down, and then there is a really troubled spot along Owens Drive at the intersection. So we've included that because there is some failure of the pavement there from all the big trucks going through there. We get some fairly regular complaints about that. So that's the green section in this Euclid map. Scott Drive, essentially the entire northbound half of Scott Drive, north of Manassas Drive. And then Denver Drive, there is a very small section of Denver that's in really, really terrible condition from Holden to West Rugby. That's been in bad condition from some time. And then Evans Street, the entire length of Evans Street.
Lana, would you post these, please, these images, so folks understand exactly what we're talking about with the paving, assuming that this would pass? Questions from the governing body?
Yeah, Calvin, we had one resident that was upset because of the late night paving on Euclid, and I'm sure others were upset as well. In terms of the hours of the paving, does Branscombe understand that they shouldn't do it late at night, especially with you have some streets like Scott Drive, Evans Street, Denver Drive, that it's going to affect people and their.
Right, and a part of the decision with the paving along Euclid Manassas Drive was the busyness of the intersection. We received several complaints during the milling operation. There were some very upset citizens that we were holding them up at the light. They didn't like the intersection being partially blocked, but the milling machine had to get through. And based on that, it seemed wise to try it at night. Unfortunately, it did abut one residential area, and we did get complaints. The paving along Euclid, we probably wouldn't receive similar such residential complaints because it's an industrial area and there's no residences that come right up to the road. But Evans, Denver, and Scott certainly would never be a night operation. You're right there next to houses. It was a logistics problem at Manassas and Euclid. Should not exist in the rest of the residential area. We can certainly detour people around and not cause delays at a major intersection with any of these residential area jobs. Now Euclid, that would be dependent upon our willingness to allow Branscombe to do it if they wanted to. They may not want to, but there is a lot of large truck traffic that's tough to detour. So we're gonna have to, if they make the recommendation, we probably have to hear it and decide whether or not we're okay with it, and
I understand.
have a little forethought and warn the residential areas nearby that this will be going on. But I don't see, I think the closest residential house to this paving job along Euclid would be a couple hundred yards at least. So I don't think the noise would be an issue.
With sound buffering with the trees and then the
There's a
fencing
tree
and
line
whatnot.
there, so.
How about the ones that are in the residential areas? Every one of those has street parking. What are we
Right.
going to do to accommodate for parking for the people who don't have in-yard parking? So we got to find a place for these people to park while we're doing this.
Yeah, and at the end of each day, the street will be in a parkable condition. It's going to be again a logistics issue. What happens when the milling machine is going down that side of the road? The cars will have to be moved. There won't be enough room on those, especially Scott Drive and Evans, those one-way streets. There's not going to be room. So there's going to be some issues with, as there always is in Manassas Park on that end of town, with the parking. And unfortunately, while the operation's going on, we're not going to have much choice but to clear the street.
Right.
And we're going to have to let the residents know far in advance that this is going to happen. There's going to be some parking inconvenience, and if it's possible, if they have cars that they're not going to utilize, we can look into options and maybe finding somewhere else for them to park. But I can't find an easy solution on the narrow one-way streets for providing parking unless they go down to the next street and walk, because at the end of each day when the operations are over, they'll have their parking spaces back. But while it's going on, the milling machine and the equipment's going to take up the entire roadway.
I think that if we can find some accommodation for people who have multiple vehicles, so that we can accommodate some off-site parking or away from their residence parking for the days that will be involved in this. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be a long process, I wouldn't think.
We have some city-owned properties. We could always give up a few spaces at the Public Works building, and perhaps Chief Evans be willing to let people, park overflow parking in his lot. But
Or Parks and Rec potentially,
Parks
one
and
of
Rec
the lower
has a large
lower
lot.
lot is an example.
of course, I was at Parks and Rec today, and that lot's getting full during the day.
No, the
so-
lower lot where we're talking about the potential for the clinic to go.
Yeah.
That's almost never used, and that could accommodate and is closer, for the people who are living there.
That's a really good suggestion. I think with our options of city-owned property, we can offer people a solution for the vehicles they don't drive every day. But during the day when these operations are going on, we're not going to be able to have cars parked on the street. There's Denver Drive, maybe some wiggle room. It's a two-way street, but Scott and Evans are very tight, and it's going to take every inch of that pavement just to have the paving operations going on. So.
Okay.
We'll put that in letters that go out, and we'll hand deliver letters to the surrounding houses also, and I'm sure we can work with Parks and Rec even to arrange bus transportation for people that might need it, dropping off their
Good.
cars.
Thank you. Other
Take care of
questions?
it.
Yeah, I did have one more question regarding the paving. Right now we're we're only doing the repaving of the southbound on Euclid Avenue. Is there a subsequent plan, for the northbound lane on Euclid Avenue?
Yeah, the southbound lane, the reason it took priority this time was we have so many patches that we've been doing for the past 2 years, and that lane is obviously failing. The northbound lane, we have not had nearly the volume of patches, and we were out there doing some ditch restoration work, some culvert restoration work, and it wasn't observed to be in as bad of condition. We really tried to prioritize our paving. The long-term goal is to have a windshield survey performed and to rank our streets in terms of need, but these are basic needs that we can't, you know, when we had to task ourselves with coming up with what fit this year's budget and where the money was best spent. These are streets that are failing miserably, that we're putting a lot of money and time into trying to patch, that are getting consistent complaints. And if northbound would have fit into this fiscal year budget, it would have probably made sense to do them both at the same time. But this is what we can do to satisfy the most complaints and to satisfy all the failing conditions that really need immediate attention. And northbound Euclid will certainly be in another fiscal year's plan. And when we get the windshield survey completed, we'll have a definite plan of action throughout the city.
So what I understood from that is, like there's no plan of, paving the northbound lane on Euclid.
But it will be in a future fiscal year budget.
So this fiscal year budget, FY16.
Not FY16. Not unless there's more money allocated to paving this year. Between these operations and the Connor Drive operation, there will be very little money left in the FY16 budget. It's going to depend on how the final invoices come out, but we'll be within $20,000 of the FY16 budget.
Everybody, I think this might be something which we may have to take a second look at it. I don't want to have a discussion about this, but we may have to take a serious look and maybe try to accomplish this northbound lane repaving as well in this FY 2016. I think we need to understand that we have a lot of businesses in that area who use this. It's a heavily trafficked road, and they too are paying taxes, and those are reputable businesses. While they may not have as much representation from citizens, but I think we need to be cognizant that in order for those businesses to be successful and operate, they need to have infrastructure to support that. So I think we may want to relook at funding the northbound project as well. It won't.
So let me ask one question along that line to make sure I understand the math, because I see where you're going. This is one lane width, right? At $233,506. That's one lane width. On the southbound lane.
It's 2 lanes.
Or is it 2 lanes width? And how does that align to the work where curb and gutter is going to have to be done with the Safe Streets project? Because that's the same lane that'll be impacted by the curb and gutter project and the stormwater drainage and so forth that has to be west of the roadbed, right?
Correct.
Are those 2 projects aligned?
You talking about the Safe Routes project?
Yeah, in terms of the timing, because we're talking about a paving project. At the same time, we're going to be doing curb and gutter, and we're going to be doing the stormwater process. So I would assume the stormwater excavation and the curb and gutter has to be done before the paving can be done. Is that right?
This initial paving, this is actually, and that's why I just stepped up here so y'all would understand. Connor Center, when that road was originally done, it's got about 2 inches of asphalt on the road. And that's part of the reason the road is failing. This is rebuilding a road with 3 inches of base and 2 inches of topping. And the point with the Safe Routes, what is the schedule for the Safe Routes? That's what he's talking about when the storm was put in.
Well, we don't have a schedule.
I mean, that's not even until next year.
We're just now starting the.
It's over a year away. Construction's over a year away.
But we're going to have to repave it afterwards then.
They'll edge pave it.
Yeah, they'll
Edge
Yeah.
pave.
Okay. I'm just trying to not have to do work twice, but it seems like that's unavoidable.
Well,
So-
what we're trying to do, just to clarify, and Frank, Calvin's doing a good job. But what we found out, parts that are failing, even down by the high school, that a lot of that with the heavy trucks has got a residential pavement design, only 2 inches, and that's part of the problem.
I understand that.
And then what, few years back, I did a projection of streets and paving and funds. So this is trying to get it with that schedule, so it's not a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing.
So if we were to do all of Euclid, to Suhas's point, the total cost of the project would be roughly $500,000 instead of $233,000, because that would have to include the cut across at like what is it, Industry and
Owens.
and whatnot.
Right.
Personally, just about you yellow, whatever the yellow place is.
Yeah, job 65.
Right now, looking at the intersection of Industry and Euclid, northbound is included. So is the intersection of Owens and northbound Euclid is included. So what we're just looking at it is repaving the missing pieces in a northbound.
Probably close to an additional $200,000.
So the question to the governing body is, do you want to consider a change in what we have allocated for paving in the public works area and increasing that by $200,000, so we would do a single paving project and get Euclid done from
Right.
Manassas Drive all the way to Euclid Court?
Right.
I think that's the question that you're asking.
That is the question. If the governing body is willing to answer, then we can do that today, or we can go back and discuss and then provide direction to the staff.
For the industrial grade level of
Yes.
paving, right?
And what we can do, if you would like, is I can contact, or Calvin, one of us can contact Brian and confirm what the price would be.
So my concern is, this is approval tonight to go ahead and let the task orders for these pieces of work at this amount.
Yes.
So that says that they're going to be working to get this done before winter sets in,
I have actually.
We're
Kim and I were
trying to get it
discussing-
done before school
before school
starts.
starts. Got that.
I'm
So
supposed
my
to get-
point is, we don't have the latitude of debating this and coming back in a month's time,
Right.
or it's not going to be,
It's not going to be done before
Right.
school
it's
starts.
going to create a mess for schools, and we could be hung up in trying to get it done before the winter.
Yeah, I know.
Excuse me, but I am supposed to get a confirmation on the schedule. I've been, Chris has actually been talking to Branscombe. By noon tomorrow, I'll have a confirmation on the schedule, but they are fully aware, I've talked with Kim, they're fully aware of the school schedule. And
Okay.
they're going to try to do everything they can to have it done.
And we're starting school early this year.
Yes, the
Yes, we are.
17th.
Okay.
17th is what was conveyed to me.
And that, and I
You got-
confirmed that.
You got people hitting the buildings on the 12th, though. That's when you start to get your teachers back. It's not the full-on transportation
Right.
effect,
That's
obviously,
the
but you-
week of staff development,
That's right, the week
workstations,
before.
getting the room set up
much
and
lower,
whatever.
much lower
No,
transportation.
no,
But they are fully aware of the concern Kim has expressed, because she asked me the same question about the 17th. We've expressed that to them. They had a scheduling meeting today. I will know tomorrow by noon. They're going to do it, and because this is a major undertaking, because they'll be taking that asphalt up and part of the stone and replacing with,
Right.
instead of 2.5.
And the issue here is, if we were to go ahead and move on this and do a single project instead of splitting it in terms of time, we're also not going to be dealing with the mobilization costs of having to do this twice.
And rescheduling, because.
And rescheduling, so we're going to be goofing up what would at least be end of the term and potentially not able to be done, if, depending on the onset of winter and cold weather, until next spring. So if we're going to move on this, I hate to put it this way, folks, but we have to move tonight.
yeah.
What
No.
would be the savings for the mobilization savings?
We don't know the
Estimate.
exact cost, but we can come back. If you could give us a not to exceed, let's say, figure, then we can come back with the actual numbers. I mean, it's going to be very similar to, like Calvin said, of that 233. But correct with the mobilization, it should be less, but I can't confirm that until we go through the.
My question is, in terms of doing Scott, Evans, and Denver, and south of Euclid, you guys looked at the roads that needed the
Yes.
paving. Does North Euclid need paving?
It's going to eventually, but we are, what happened, as Calvin has tried to express, I had come up with my little presentation a couple years back, and it ended up, that's why we were budgeting $700 and some thousand dollars. I took the 54 lane miles of road, put my factors on there and what we had to do every year to get it done in 20 years. Okay. And before we only had $200,000 in our payment. So the 744, but that road is going to eventually have to be paved, yes.
Okay.
Part
In
of
the
it
next
is-
2 to 3 years?
No, actually now, sorry.
No, I'm
I have
asking
driven.
based on his
Okay.
assessment, his
No, no,
professional assessment. Is it in the next 2 to 3 years that we'd have to do it anyway?
I would say so because, and y'all, if
So in the scope of, Jay, I'm trying to cut to the chase here.
Hey,
In
yes.
the scope of time of road life, that's like tomorrow. That's, and so to Suhas's point,
It does need it.
we're going to end up back inside of 24 months with the decision under any circumstance.
And it has the residential grade paving versus the
Right.
industrial grade that
Correct.
lasts longer. And that's why we had experienced, you mentioned it, the roll-off on the
Yes.
south of Euclid.
When it
You've got-
pushes, what happens is when your asphalt, when it gets hot and you have large trucks, when they're actually braking, asphalt's hot, it starts pushing. That's what's happened at the intersection of Owens particularly.
And you've got that
It is
large
a-
hump. I'm sure we've all driven by it or over it. I know I lost an alignment because of it, but it's right there at Euclid at that
Didn't have
stop
anything to do with
sign.
the road, that was the driver.
No, and
No, rare.
we've had similar failures of the work that was done in front of when the high school was redone.
Well, we had similar things at the intersection of Polk and Manassas Drive coming down the hill when the road slipped.
Yes.
Okay.
So if the governing body is of a willingness to do this, if we said total price of the project not to exceed $450,000, would that be sufficient funding, you think, to cover? And you bring it back for some confirmation of the task order?
Specifically on job 65 as presented.
I'm looking at the sheet that is,
Job 65.
Right.
Job 65, both north and south.
So
Yes.
Job 65 not to exceed 500,000.
Said 450.
450.
I was looking at 450. Would 450 do it?
I would think looking.
Why don't we say
Yeah.
5 and I'll come back? Because this is 233, just to make sure there's nothing else out there.
So if we said a value for job 65, which for purposes of the governing body is page 24
Okay.
of the package, and it has the call out of the milling and then the 2-inch and the 3-inch overlays, what we would be doing is, this is the southbound, what we would be doing is adding other item numbers that would include the northbound lanes,
Yes.
with a total value of the project not to exceed $500,000. And at this point, I would suggest to the governing body, if you're interested in doing this, we need to identify a source of funding. The one that is most readily available in my mind would be that we direct that the funds come out of proffers, and it will be balancing this at mid-year. Because proffers do contain the flexibility to be able to support infrastructure, and this is clearly infrastructure for the city.
Yeah, I'm willing to make the motion.
Want to second the motion?
Any further discussion?
I do have a question. Will this northern part of Euclid be cheaper than the southern part? Because it's, I'm looking at the way they're quantifying their costs.
There could be a savings because the intersections will already be in it.
Right.
Right.
But what I don't want to do is, they tell me they're going to start, I get a schedule and start, and then I got to come back, and they say, well, we can't do that now, we got to do it 6 months from now or whatever.
Okay.
Because once they mobilize out here, it's going to work to the benefit of everybody. If it's all done in one time, then we put it to bed.
And will Connor Drive extension affect the paving of North Euclid or not? Okay.
No.
So there's no money left in roads, is that correct?
This would
We've got,
I mean, you're all spent out, which is,
because what we've got is we've got Connor drivers on top of this. We had $778,726, I believe it was, something like that. I'm going by memory. And this is going to be within $20,000 or $30,000 of.
That's why I'm
that budget.
suggesting that when we get to mid-year, we can
Yeah.
balance
Yeah.
out so that we draw the account to zero by the end of the year. And we'll only take out of proffers what we have to take to pay the bill.
We do
What
have
we're
an-
doing is identifying a source of funding for this now,
right.
though.
No, I understand.
We do have another, what we just added to the agenda, the VDOT grant. We will be doing some more paving with that along Manassas.
Yes.
It's about 400,000, but
If you want to
we can't switch it to this, though, to
No,
pay
no.
it, so.
We have
yeah.
got, the Berkeley group applied for a grant. We had 2 portions of Manassas Drive. We actually got the final paperwork is not done, but we were notified that we were awarded, it's a little over $400,000. And that would go from the, the city line, farthest west city line, all the way up to Martin, the full width. And that's what I want to do, is the same thing as while we have these people working, is as soon as we get the paperwork straightened out, because we've got to spend that money within 6 months.
There's no local match on it, though, so.
So it's
Okay, so for purposes of this one, we have a motion and a second that would add the northbound lanes and would take that figure to a value not to exceed $500,000, understanding that you'll come back to us with what the actual costs are. I would ask for that in an email and then a briefing at the governing bodies meeting in August, so we can get it out there. But that's our motion that we have. Is that correct? That's what we agreed to. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you, Jay and Calvin, for answering our questions, and thank you, Suhas, for
I apologize
suggesting
for
that.
the move on the fly, but I think Suhas's point is well made. It doesn't make sense to go through mobilization twice and fix that road twice. Let's fix it.
And Frank, I totally agree. And the budget number that I came up with was a mathematical 20 years divided by what my guesstimates were. So yes, this is, and two, just like Kim brought up, the portion of Manassas Drive down by Baker Street and coming on up, we're virtually going to be doing about half of Manassas Drive up to 28.
All right. So let me ask the governing body, since we're talking about paving, it's on our agenda. You want to go ahead and let's move up to 8F, and then we'll pick up the rest of them? That's the VDOT grant that we're talking about. So let's go ahead and do all the paving, then we'll jump to 8F real quickly.
And the motion that I would request that you make for that is and Dean, make sure I get this right, to authorize me or certify that I am permitted to sign this agreement with VDOT.
Well, you'll be doing two
I
things.
need a certification with the actual signature.
Yeah, so you'll be approving this. I haven't had a chance to review it. It just came in today, so review it, subject to final city attorney review, which will happen tomorrow. And then you're going to go ahead and authorize Kim to sign on behalf of the city. And does it have to say authorize or certify?
It says certify. It's certify that I'm.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead and authorize to sign to meet the requirements for certification requirements on
Okay.
And the value of this is just over $400,000?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And the stretch to be paved is Manassas Drive from the far western city limit, which is beyond the police department and so
Right
forth,
past Baker.
all the way to the intersection of Martin.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, when this
ma'am.
is, assuming that this will be approved, does the clock start ticking?
Yes.
It does.
It starts ticking from when we sign it, I think.
From,
Or
okay.
is it from July 1st?
What happened is they, I don't know if you saw the emails, but we got a notification that it was on the green list they had. And then VDOT said that they were going to send us the paperwork a week after ETV voted on it. We did not receive the paperwork, and so one Saturday night I emailed VDOT and got a response back, and they said, they actually emailed it to me and said, just print off 3 copies, and do what Kim's trying to do right now, and send it back in, so.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I read the email, but I
Right.
meant once it is approved and signed, the clock starts ticking for use of the funds. Is that,
Yes.
that's my question?
Yes, we have
Okay.
6 months.
Okay.
And so the expectation is this is going to be a project that will be done before we get to winter.
Yes, sir. My thing is when I'm, with y'all's approval, when we go back to Branscombe on this, I want to be able to schedule that work also.
Okay?
I want to get it lined up so the school is a priority, obviously.
Right.
And then we got Connor, we got Evans, we got Scott, but that's a lot of work for them.
Okay.
And we want to try to get, I want to try to get it all done this summer.
And very similar to the concerns that Preston had, this is not work that will be done at night
No, that's all residential.
because it's all residential.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Other questions?
And that should go a lot faster because that's just a 2-inch mill and 2-inch over.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. So Kim, by virtue of this motion, you are certified, authorized, blessed with holy water, whatever the right thing is, so that you can sign this thing, whatever that needs to say.
Okay, perfect.
All right, now, back to item 8C, which is the change order for Bowman Consultant. It's the Railroad Quiet Zone and updated FRA application.
Okay. We had originally, when we began the Railroad Quiet Zone project, a FRA application had been authorized for the mayor's signature by the governing body. When we looked into the details, Bowman was contracted with a due diligence study of the quiet zone, and they determined that some of the information in the quiet zone, in the FRA calculator, was incorrect. Things have changed, and they have gone in, and a part of their due diligence, they have changed that information in the FRA's database, and based on that, we need the new application signed by the mayor to submit to FRA. So that piece of this agenda item is quite simply that there were errors in the FRA's information. It's actually not FRA's information, it's the USDOT's information about the crossing. But there were errors in the original application that have now been corrected. And so if the governing body is so willing to authorize the mayor to sign the new application, that will be that portion of this agenda item taken care of. These three change orders represent what is now left of putting the Railroad Quiet Zone puzzle together, and that is basically Public Works is going to put in the barriers that will allow Norfolk Southern and the FRA to acknowledge the quiet zone. Oh, wow. But in order for us to do that, we need survey work to see which portion of those barriers will possibly penetrate into the railroad right away. We need design work to show us exactly where the barriers need to go to, the location of the barriers, and these three change orders represent that work. There's survey work, there is a supplemental safety measure design that will be the mountable curb with the delineators on it, and then the other change order is simply assistance through the Norfolk Southern application process. This is not a simple process. Norfolk Southern actually has to acknowledge the quiet zone even if FRA accepts our application. So Norfolk Southern, the process has been started by Bowman. They've been contacted. The process of reviewing what they have in their signal cabinet has been initiated. There'll need to be an on-site meeting with Norfolk Southern, and the entire application process with Norfolk Southern will receive Bowman's assistance through the entire thing. They'll answer Norfolk Southern's questions. They will guide us through any deliverables we need to give to Norfolk Southern. So you have basically survey work, design work, and guidance through the Norfolk Southern application process.
What type of barriers?
These will be what originally we anticipated concrete median. But when Bowman was first tasked with this, they looked into some proprietary products that are essentially, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the temporary speed bumps that we put down from time to time. Product looks very similar to that. It's a top of the surface mounted mountable median with delineators that stick up from it. So
delineators meaning something like what we found at Manassas and Mathis Avenue, the posts with the reflectors.
Right. And it's a proprietary product. It's very cost effective, and if it gets torn up with a snowplow, then it can be replaced at little expense. As to where if we put a very small concrete median and we tear it up with a snowplow, we're back out there pouring concrete again. So just for cost-effective reasons, the proprietary product is very favorable to us at this time. And Bowman has verified with Norfolk Southern and FRA that they will accept this proprietary product. So that's where we're headed right now. If down the road, if we have the roadway width, this product's also very, very lane friendly. We don't have to go in and pour a wide concrete median and then eat up valuable lane width and do a lot of restriping. We can just simply put these in. It's not going to chew up any lane width, and it will still work to serve the purposes of Norfolk Southern acknowledging the quiet zone. So,
Before we lock ourselves into anything, can we see pictures?
yes.
This is right in our downtown
yeah,
area.
as soon as you asked me about it, I was wishing that I had put pictures in this agenda item for you. Bowman has provided us with some, essentially like the cover page of the packet from the company that produces them. So I can get those for everyone. They, I was trying to describe them the best I could. To me, they look like the temporary speed bumps with the delineators sticking out of the top.
And did you say there were also supplementary safety measures?
Those are the supplemental
Those are the
safety
supplementary?
measures, yeah.
Okay.
That's what we need to install to keep traffic from, you're trying to keep traffic from going between the arms when the arms are down. So these delineators keep traffic from dodging the gates, if you will.
So is that the one and only supplementary safety measure?
Yes, as prescribed in the FRA's quiet zone calculator for the speed limit, the train speed, all the conditions that they factor in, these mountable medians with delineators serve the purpose and should be acknowledged by FRA and Norfolk Southern for our quiet zone.
So let me jump in 1 second. That's not, I believe the signage that's required, isn't there also? Along the roadbed that says railroad quiet zone and requires the drivers to be aware that it's a quiet zone, and so they're supposed to be more observant, as you find placed in the city of Manassas?
It does not appear on FRA's calculator, and Bowman has not mentioned it to us at this point, has not come up to staff at this point.
Please take a look. I believe there's a signage requirement there as well.
And there are requirements that Norfolk Southern has for equipment inside their cabinets, and Norfolk Southern may very well have this as an additional criteria that FRA does not have. But that's all part of this.
I know if you go down through Old Town, there's, you know, traditional road sign that says rail quiet zone and gives the hours, and it encourages the driver to be particularly attentive. I'm sorry, but I wanted to make sure, because that's another safety measure.
And I personally wonder how many people read those signs, you know.
Okay, just one.
Yeah. How would this be affected by a change in speed of the trains? Because as I recall, some years ago, Manassas City attempted to have trains move faster on the Norfolk Southern tracks than they're currently moving. I don't think that was successful, but there was an effort to increase train speed.
I know that when the US DOT's database was wrong, and they said that the average train speed through our grade crossing was 70 miles an hour.
70?
Yes.
70.
These supplemental safety measures were still the result of the calculator. So I don't know exactly to which point you would have to raise the speed of the trains to get additional supplementary measures required. But even when our train speed was incorrect in the calculator at 70 miles an hour average train speed, these measures were still sufficient. That's certainly a question I can pose to Bowman. That is, you know, they will come back with a good answer. Right now, I don't know what the answer to that is. I've never combed through the calculator and plugged in different values to see when you actually get to the point that you're changing the requirements.
That would probably affect when the arms went down. Wouldn't train speed would affect that, wouldn't it?
A big portion of this is surviving Norfolk Southern's application process. They have requirements for equipment in the cabinet that the Federal Railroad Administration does not have. Norfolk Southern has specific requirements for quiet zones, and right now they should be. They have been paid, and they should be right now studying their own equipment in their cabinet to determine what is there and what is not there that is required for the quiet zone. So the pieces of this have not been completed. We don't have a final design, and certainly before Bowman comes to us with a final design, right now we're operating on preliminary information. What the FRA's calculator says is that we need these types of supplementary safety measures, and it's just saying mountable median with delineators. What comes up after Norfolk Southern's review of their equipment may be something different. They may have a piece of equipment that's not there that needs to be there. They may require signage that's not there that needs to be there. And we can certainly visit with them what any change in train speed would mean to our quiet zone down the road.
Are there any alternative safety measures involved in this study much as Frank mentioned, the signage, public education of any type, photo enforcement. Is there any of that involved in this study?
In Bowman's work to this
Yes.
point, no, Bowman's work to this point was to determine what would be the minimum requirement to get a safety zone declared in Manassas Park.
The minimum requirement?
Well, that was their due diligence, was to determine what we would have to meet FRA standards and Norfolk Southern standards. And we're still to the point where Norfolk Southern has not evaluated all their equipment and determined that they have adequate equipment for this. So we have not tasked Bowman with looking into further safety measures. We tasked them with coming up with what Manassas Park would need to do to get a quiet zone declared.
Okay. Was there a relationship between wanting to do the minimum that would be required and the cost that was involved?
Well, we're trying to stay, this is a revenue sharing project. Based on the original calculations that FRA provided, the supplemental safety measures were only supposed to cost us around $15,000. Knowing that there was going to be a lot of administrative work and possibly some design work, we applied for $40,000 for a total project cost. So we have $20,000 in match money coming from the state, but we're still operating under a $40,000 total budget for this project. And with these change orders and the amount of work that's already been put into it, we're getting close to that budget. And so we're hoping that the supplemental safety measures with Public Works doing the work, that we can accomplish this project within the $40,000 budget. So we haven't been looking for ways to spend more money. I can say that we've been looking at ways to accomplish this within budget.
How was the figure of 40,000 determined?
It was based on the FRA's calculated costs of their anticipated cost of the supplemental safety measures, which was the mountable median with the delineators, and then potential design work and administrative work by city staff.
So that was the Federal Railroad Administration that made that determination?
Not the 40,000, the 15,000.
The 15,000.
And then it was staff estimate up to the 40,000 that it may take.
Okay, so staff made the 40,000 estimate. Is that what you're saying? I'm not clear as to what you're saying, Calvin.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
trying to remember. It was in the CIP, I believe, as a $40,000 project. And I'm trying to, it was some time ago.
We applied for it would have been,
Yeah,
it
it
would
was-
have been a staff estimate.
Staff estimate.
Because most certainly the comfort level would go up knowing that there would be more than one supplemental safety measure.
Right, and I was trying to, it was $15,000 estimated construction costs, and then, money thrown in to cover design work and staff administration of the application. And so the $40,000 was a rough estimate by staff, not knowing exactly what was going to, what might occur before this happened.
One of the comments that I think we should also be aware of is, given the proximity of where we are and what we're trying to do compared to Manassas, Manassas has none of these supplemental safety measures in place at any of their crossings. There is no lane separator. It's simply that the gates come down, and there's nothing that prevents other than the signage.
Right.
And that starts at I forget the name of the street right there at the new townhouses that are being built, where the little old Presbyterian church is. And the ones that go down alongside between Tudor and Center Street and through Old Town itself, there is no lane divide at all. So, and they still have their process. So, do I think we are significantly better served by what has been proposed than what I've seen in the other jurisdiction alongside us? Yeah. Now, theirs was invoked before some of these rules came into play as well. That's, we need to remind ourselves of that. But there is nothing in Manassas that separates the lanes.
And I certainly would not compare us to Manassas.
I'm just saying that I think in terms of
I
the
know.
due diligence,
Yeah.
the due diligence for this kind of a separator, having a separator, whether it's concrete or whatever it's going to be, I'm not sure what the best guess is, so I'm taking staff's recommendation here. But the fact that we have one in place, I think, heightens compared to any of the other places around us.
Thank you.
No, my concern is the cost, because I'm looking at the cost for the application for Norfolk Southern. And do they have an application fee, and that's why it's so high, or?
Yes, they actually have it's more of a review fee. That fee has been paid. They've charged us a review fee for going over our application, and it's really for their evaluation of their own crossing.
Wow.
And we were forewarned by Bowman that this was coming some time ago. It wasn't something staff originally anticipated, but Bowman, when they first came on board, said, yeah, we believe there is a review fee, and it's essentially paying Norfolk Southern to go over what they have at their own grade crossing and tell us what's missing and what's there, and then that's also pays for their coordination. They want to have a meeting with staff and council on site to discuss the quiet zone, that money's already been paid to Norfolk Southern.
Wow. How much is that fee?
$5,200.
Okay. And this is going to be a heck of a process, it sounds like. So it's going to take a matter of months, or what's the time scale we're looking at?
I can't say at this point. I can't say what Norfolk Southern's turnaround time is on their review, and if they have equipment missing from their own crossing, they're likely to come back to us and want us to pay for it, since we're requesting the quiet zone. And I'm not sure what that turnaround time would be, and we may be working with the railroad on some right-of-way issues, because part of this will probably penetrate into the right-of-way. So it's very difficult to work with the railroad from time to time. We've been warned by VDOT that the railroad can draw these things out. So we're trying not to put a drop-dead deadline on this project, because we don't know what the railroad's going to do, how long they're going to take.
Okay.
One thing that I think we should also be aware of, and just as a reminder, for our part of this, the revenue sharing part of this, the money is coming out of the PRTC 2% motor fuels tax money. This isn't coming out of general fund dollars. It's coming out of motor fuels tax dollars.
Yeah, it was a $20,000 match from PRTC for the $20,000 in revenue sharing.
Okay.
So the flip side would be, Calvin, if in fact we ended up having to buy some black box component, because it is transportation related, we could probably pay for that out of motor fuels tax money if we had to.
Right, and there's always the potential of requesting further revenue sharing funds from VDOT. Dick Burke's email that went out the other day confirmed that Priority 1 projects will be projects that already have revenue sharing agreements on them. So for any of our revenue sharing projects that are existing, if the budget is expanded, then those supposedly are Priority 1 projects for consideration in whatever application year. So if this project does look like it's going over budget and we want to pursue that route, we can always submit another revenue sharing application to cover the difference. And hopefully VDOT will actually consider it Priority 1 and match us on whatever further expenses we incur.
Okay, that's good
It's looking
news.
like that might be the case with the other two also. Connor Drive and Denver Drive look like they're going to be.
That's good, but that's going to be it's going to take longer for the project to be completed, because we've got to submit that application.
Yeah, well, it would be nice for Norfolk Southern to come back with that information sooner than later, because according to Dick Burke's email, it looks like the call for revenue sharing applications for this year is going to be in August. Typically, the intent letters were due in October, and the call for revenue sharing was sometime the end of November, December. Looks like they've bumped that forward. So we may not have this project. We may not know what we're looking at with this project in time for this year's revenue sharing application, but if we do, it'll certainly be in a revenue sharing application to see if we can get help with the funding.
Okay, thanks.
So what we have is before us a staff recommendation that is to approve the change order for Bowman Consultant in the amount of total across the three pieces of work, $17,209.65, and to approve the updated FRA application. What's governing body's pleasure?
So moved.
A second.
Motion and a second in discussion. Hearing none, all's in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Our next item is the Euclid Manassas Drive condemnation of properties.
Yeah, this, you may remember we had 4 properties that were, they're impacted by the intersection project at Manassas Drive and Euclid Avenue. On June 2nd, you authorized, well, we had a resolution prior to that. You had a motion on June 2nd that basically says, okay, you guys, go forward, do what you got to do to condemn. We did 3 of the properties at the time because one of them was already, we'd already gotten verbal agreement that they weren't going to contest it. We're at a point now where we have 2 of the property owners have signed the deeds. I believe we're going to closing on Friday. 2 others, however, we did have to file petition for condemnation. That was for the Stone Ridge 2 property and then also the 7-Eleven property. 7-Eleven is only because we're still in some minor little discussions with them. They need to get approval. They have to go, I believe that's the one that has to go all the way to Japan, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be.
Yeah, so they just weren't going to meet the deadline we had given them, which was July 15th. So decision was made to go ahead and file. It pretty much just preserves our right. We don't anticipate actually having to go to a hearing on this because we've already reached agreement on the form of the document and the compensation. It was just the kind of the internal workings of their corporate structure that was going to delay things. So don't really anticipate actually going to a hearing on that. But because nothing's finalized, the city manager would like to go ahead and have a motion that covers all 4 properties, just in case one of the 2 that we've already agreed on falls apart, so we're not in any kind of a bad position. Okay, so that's all this is. I've prepared a motion that's got all 4 properties on it, even though, as I said, there's only 2 of them that we're actually anticipating going to condemnation on, and one of those doesn't really even look like it'll go to a hearing.
Just for purposes of clarification, I'm going to read the motion. Motion is to authorize the city's legal counsel, agents, and staff to file 1 or more certificates of take and deposit funds with the court, and to take all necessary action to accomplish the same, to acquire property interests in the following properties as shown on the approved plans titled City of Manassas Park Intersection Improvements to Manassas Drive and Euclid Avenue. VDOT Project U000-152-271, RW-201. And there are 4 subparagraphs. Parcel 1 of the Spencer Haskins estate is shown on the plat attached to Schedule C to the corrected order releasing liens recorded in the Deed Book 103, page 1295, according to the Land Records, Prince William County. Tax map number 24-A-2, located at 8498 Euclid Avenue and owned by SEJ Asset Management and Investment Company, pursuant to a deed recorded as instrument number 201304120037920 among the land records. Second one is tract D1, as shown on the plat recorded as instrument number 200608090117739 among the land records with tax stamp number 24-A-D, located at 8503 Euclid Avenue and owned by HCW Connor Center, LLC, KRA Connor Center, LLC, ORP Connor Center, LLC, RPW Connor Center, LLC, and WRO Connor Center, LLC, pursuant to a deed recorded as instrument number 200-801-02-00000178 among the land records. Third parcel is parcel A1 Connor Center, is shown on the plat attached to the deed of re-subdivision recorded in the deed book 1513 at page 779 among the land records with tax stamp number 24-A-9, located at 8499 Euclid Avenue and owned by PS Southeast 1 Incorporated, pursuant to a deed recorded as instrument number 2014070800047-674 among the land records. And the fourth parcel is parcel B, parent and open space, as shown on the plat attached to the deed of dedication recorded in Deed Book 900 at page 187 among the land records with tax map number 24-2-B, located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Manassas Drive and Euclid Avenue and owned by Stone Ridge 2 Community Association, pursuant to a deed recorded in Deed Book 2218 at page 448 among the land records. That's the nature of the motion to cover the 4 tracts that allows us to move forward. What is the governing body's pleasure?
I'll move approval, but I just want some clarification of the 4 which you just read out, which ones, you have been discussing, and you said 2 of the 4, like when you've already had discussions. Can you identify those 2?
Well, we actually had discussions with all of them. The Stone Ridge 2 is the one at the southwest corner of Manassas and Euclid. That's the one that has always been, we're going to have to do condemnation action because they just flat out said no.
Okay.
That one's been filed and paid already.
Yeah,
That
it's
one
already been filed.
Okay.
The one that was initially, that we weren't going to have to do anything with is let's see, which one is it on there?
You want it back?
Track D1 is shown on the plat. That's the second one down.
Yeah.
That is the one that we all call the Guy Lewis track. It's where the car dealerships are and such. They were very accommodating. They understood what was going on, had no problem with it. Indicated up front that they were going to go ahead and work with us. Across the street is the public storage. They've also reached agreement with us. And we've got the deed, the signed deed. Again, those 2 are going to closing on Friday. The 7-Eleven piece, we actually reached agreement on the cost and then also the form of the deed. It's just the internal corporate structure required us.
Japan?
Yeah. There's some other internal stuff there. So
Which one is that parcel?
that's the first one on the list.
Parcel 1, Spencer Haskins
Yes,
Estate
sir.
is the 7-Eleven track.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions? We have a motion then from Suhas. Is there a second?
it. Second.
Brian is the second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. And then the last item of new business is the cooperation agreement with HUD.
This is the formalization of the action you guys took, I think, at the
Does anybody want to read this?
at the last meeting. It's the cooperative agreement with Prince William County for the CDBG home and ESG grants. And this is just basically the agreement that we need to sign with them.
Are you signing that one?
I believe it's for Frank's signature, and if you can make sure you sign it tonight, they need the original back as soon as possible.
Okay. Questions?
Nope.
We have staff recommendation recommending approval. We've talked about this one before, and it was an item we were supportive of.
And
What's
you
governing
actually-
body's pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second in discussion. Hearing none, all's in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Managers report.
I was going to mention National Night Out, but you've already taken care of that. The only other thing I wanted to talk to you about was today we had the first coordination meeting for the modular health clinic building at the community center. And one of the questions that came up was, would the city be willing to foot the cost for the utilities, basically electric and water and sewer? So that's kind of up to you guys. My recommendation to you would be if you are going to consider doing it, I would not recommend we do it for electric service. If you want to consider it for the water and sewer service, then I would only recommend that you do that while that stays a city utility. If it were to ever become a private utility in the future, I wouldn't want to see us in a position where we were still continuing to do that. I don't know if it's something you want to think about, discuss at all, or I know when we started talking about this, we entered this agreement with the understanding that we weren't going to be paying for anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that, I think that has been our position. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with maintaining that position.
And that's your recommendation?
That would be my recommendation. My recommendation would to not do it.
Understand.
Be to not do it. If you do decide to do it, I would say only do water and sewer and only while that
But your
maintains.
recommendation is to not
And at
get
this
involved in
point-
either of them, let it be its own entity.
At this point, I think that that's probably the best.
Everybody in agreement with that?
Absolutely.
And what's their option if we don't do it?
They're responsible for the utilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's
So I think I'm seeing all the heads nod yes.
safer, that's
so-
cost effective.
Yeah.
If they're responsible for it, they'll be more inclined to conserve.
Right.
Okay. All right. Then that's it. That's the only thing I had.
All right. On to closed meeting then.
I recommend the governing body go into closed meeting to, 1, discuss the assignment and performance of 3 specific public officers, appointees, or employees. 2, discuss and consider the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the city. 3, protect the privacy of an individual in a personal matter not related to public business. 4, consult with me regarding a legal matter requiring the provisional legal advice by me. And 5, discuss reports and plans related to the security of city facilities pursuant to paragraphs 1, 3, 4, 7, and 19 of subsection 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia.
Governing body's pleasure on going into closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll do closed meeting in here. 5 minutes for a bio break.